Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, and I'm really excited to be here with you today, as I am always. And if my energy seems a little bit different, it's because it's really early in the morning right now. I've got a kind of a busy day ahead of me, so I'm actually doing this podcast at an unusually early hour today. Usually, I do these sometime in the middle of the day. And now it's only about 7 o'clock this morning. So anyway, I'm glad I could be here with you today. It's all about being flexible, right? And the reason for this, the need for this flexibility is actually because of a really big snowstorm we had over the weekend here in Denver. We got walloped. I mean, we have like 2 feet of snow out there or something like that. It was one of those days, and I really love these days. One of these days where, a blizzard is one of the only things that can really do this. Even a big hurricane, sometimes we feel like, I mean, certainly a hurricane conditions, people stay inside. But up until a hurricane or a blizzard, it's usually, people just kind of, try to make their way through the weather stuff that happens, And so, but when a blizzard dumps 2 feet of snow within 24 hours, there's nothing you can do. And I always love the fact that, that nature has this way of making us, come into the present moment, making us reevaluate what we're doing, making us, compromise on what it is that we think we need to do, and what we're, kind of striving towards, right? As you may remember, one of the key aspects of mindfulness practices and living with mindfulness is the concept of non-striving, right? And that means that, really allowing life to happen as opposed to, trying to grab that next thing, right? And that's what happens when a big snowstorm like this comes through. We have these plans, we have these, responsibilities, we have all these expectations of what's going to happen, and then boom, all of it changes outside of our, of any control that we might have, right? And so as we practice mindfulness, in an ironic way, it prepares us for things like this, right? So yesterday, when all the plans were changing and everything was all being kind of turned upside down, I was relatively like, okay, well, let's just take it in stride, right? Because I'm used to it, right? This is what I practice every day, right? When we practice mindfulness, when we practice being present and accepting what it is that we're finding in this present moment, treating ourselves and others with compassion and bringing a level of curiosity into every one of our experiences, well then, it's no big deal that we have to change everything. That, okay, we went from Saturday where we're going to do all this stuff to, what? We're basically trapped indoors for most of the day here. We'll bundle the kids up at some point, try to get them outside and play, but you know how that goes. Lasts for maybe a half hour, if that. And so we had to readjust, and that's the way, that's what life is all about, right? We only notice it when it's a blizzard or a hurricane or some other, huge force of nature or whatever that brings life to a halt. We've all experienced it on some level or others. And of course, it's no fun when when these events, they cause damage and they hurt people. And that's, of course, not something that we're enjoying. But the idea, though, is that, life is always subject to this kind of disruption. Right? It's just that we don't see it that clearly until it's something that disrupts like a whole city, right? Or a whole country even, right? And so that's why, it's a really good way to illustrate the work that we do here, in this, the work that I talk about here in the podcast and the YouTube channel is to illustrate how it all works when, nature grinds the whole thing to a halt. And it's really kind of fun. And it's really kind of, and again, I'm not, it's no fun for people who lost their power and without heat and electricity, that's no fun. And it's no fun what happened in Texas a few weeks ago, of course, right? But it's a really, up to the point where people are suffering, it's a very advantageous way to kind of remind ourselves that life is unpredictable. and life is fickle and life is subject to all kinds of last minute changes and adjustments that might need to happen, right? And the more we can be present with life, right? The more we can practice being rooted and centered and grounded right here in this present moment, right? Which is the only moment there is, right? When we can practice this, well, then that's what it does, right? It makes us like every day can be a snow day, right? And we don't have to, we don't have to, cling to things. We don't have to, kind of cling to the expectations and fret over things that don't work out the way that we want them to, right? We don't have to live like that. We can live with patience and with acceptance and with, again, compassion and curiosity. And it takes some practice is all. Right? And so that's why we talk about every day, doing a little bit of this practice because it primes you and it prepares you for those times where life disrupts whatever. And again, so many times in our daily lives, if it's not a blizzard or a hurricane or something like that, so many times, when life is telling us, hey, listen, it's not going to work out today, what do? We push it through. We make it happen, And what else suffers as we try to make these things happen, right? When we refuse to accept the fact that things are going to be different today, right? Again, a blizzard, you have no choice but to accept it, right? I mean, because you just can't get anywhere. Literally, like yesterday, the wind out there must have been 30-mile-an-hour winds with huge flakes of snow. I mean, nobody. I mean, yes, you could get somewhere if you had to, but they closed down the interstates, and I mean, it was a big, big deal. So again, it becomes the kind of thing where you have very little choice but to accept the fact that life is doing this big blizzard with 2 feet of snow within a day, And so that's just a great lesson. But there's another lesson I want to talk to you about. And this actually happened on Friday morning. And I want to tell you this story. It's a personal story, something that just happened to me on Friday. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because it's a real... Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, I want to show you that even myself, who's been practicing mindfulness for, nearly 10 years now, that even some days I am challenged. And it's not, and again, just because we practice these things and develop these skills, it doesn't mean that life doesn't sometimes dish up a little inconvenience and a little difficulty for us. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story that's just like, oh my gosh, I had one of those days on Friday morning. But in addition to showing you how anybody is subject to this, it's a really great lesson in staying present and overcoming the stress and the reactivity, or avoiding the reactivity, so that you can turn the day around. All right, so here's what happened. So, most mornings I wake up really early. I like to wake up at like 5 a.m. so that I can get a good start on the day, right? I mean, between 5 and like 8 or 9 is, usually 8 or 9 is when I start, having to like have meetings and talk to people and, everybody's awake. But so between 5 and say 8 or 9 is my time to do, writing and really kind of, it's my quiet time to really think about what I'm doing, make plans and kind of design some of these podcasts and stuff like that. Like, it's my quiet time, but on Friday I had this thing that I had to do, right? And it concerns the whole tax returns and all this kind of stuff that was going on. I don't want to get into too many details about what was going on, right? But suffice it to say that I found out that I needed to, something happened with when I filed my taxes and the way that the return was, or the way the refund was being processed, and all of a sudden it looked like there was some uncertainty to it, and of course, it's not like it was an emergency or anything, but it's something I needed to deal with, and so this was a time that I know, even though this is usually my very precious, quiet, creative time, and this is a time that's very special to me, right? It's a time that I'm in full control, and I get to really kind of set my own tempo, if you will, right? And so again, unfortunately, that's the only time that I had on Friday to deal with this thing that needed to be dealt with, right? And so So I come down to my office, and actually it was a little bit later than it normally was because Thursday night I was kept up. Not only do I have late meetings on Thursday, but I also had some stuff with the kids, and we just wound up being late. And so I woke up, instead of 5, I probably woke up a little bit after 6, which was like already okay. It's okay, everything's fine, but it's we're not. Things are not what they should be, if you will, right? So already things were a little off, right? And so again, in breaking with my normal, routine, I had to make this phone call. I had to just deal with something. And I didn't know what it was going to require. Hopefully it was only going to require like logging in and just checking something and finding something out. But it wasn't like I had to make a call, right? I had to call TurboTax, and then I had to call this, anyway, it's all about how here's the story. Okay. I don't want to be cryptic about it, but I'm trying not to be too detailed either, just because it's like not necessary. But anyway, my refund was apparently already deposited in my bank. Like I got this notice saying, "Oh, your refund is there." And I looked and I said, "No, it's not." And so I got to track down this refund, right? And so this year TurboTax did this weird thing where they offered you a Credit Karma account that you could get they would send you a debit card like right away, like within like a couple of days, and all your refund money would be on there. And so you could get your money faster and it doesn't cost anything and all that. And I'm like a sucker for that stuff. I see that, it's like recommended on the website and big green highlights. So I was like, yeah, okay, why not? It's free. Why not? Well, it didn't work out so well. I never got the card. And then it said that my deposit was, my direct deposit was in, but it wasn't. And of course, like that's like, who knows what's going on, right? And so again, this is something I needed to deal with it, right? So Friday morning, I get up and I log on and I'm looking, I'm like, okay, just making sure, okay, it's definitely not my bank account. I don't have any emails from this other debit card thing. I never received the debit card. So something's up. So I call the place, right? The first person that I get on the phone, of course, it's, you got to wait 5 minutes of, listening to this like god awful music. Here's one thing, right? I want to just call out all those corporations who give you the opportunity. And it's just been a couple that I've ever heard that they give you the opportunity to press a button so that you don't have to listen to the music. More of that, please. Okay, because sitting there for 5 minutes listening to the same, just the same bar of music basically over and over and over. Oh my gosh, it makes 5 minutes seem a lot longer, And so of course, after a 5-minute wait of, this agitating music, I get somebody on the phone, and this person, quite frankly, they just weren't very helpful. They kind of listened to me a little, and then they said, well, the only thing you can do is here's a phone number to call the other place, and find out where the card is and find out what's going on. So here you go. I'm like, okay, thank you, I guess. So I call the other place. Oh, by the way, before I get into this, before I even made the first call, right? And this just tells you a lot, right? Before I even made the first phone call and got into any of this, right? I put my cup of tea down on my desk, and this teacup that was a hand potted, beautiful teacup with this beautiful little leaf on the handle and a cover that fit just so, and it was the perfect size. It was something my wife gave to me for Christmas. Well, I put it on my desk, and while I was moving my chair to get seated, I bumped the desk, knocked the cup off the desk, broke in like 8 different pieces, and spilled hot steaming tea all over the floor under my desk, right? So that's how things started. All right. Then I made this phone call and waited 5 minutes on hold with this, crazy, awful music that I, really was not, and you can't turn it off because then you're going to miss the people when they, so you kind of have to have it on, and so then, after 5 minutes of that, I get on the phone with this person, and, after a couple of minutes, all they did was give me a number to call for the place that was supposedly had the debit card and all that stuff. Right. So, okay. So I call the place and now it's all automated, right? And so I put in my birthday, I put in my last 4 of my social security, and then they say, okay, give us your debit card number so we can get somebody to help you. It's like, okay, I don't have a debit card number. That's the problem, right? And so I'm sitting there and I'm hitting 0, I'm hitting pound, I'm saying operator. And they just keep coming back and say, that is not a valid debit card number. I don't understand your debit card number. Looks like you don't have your debit card number with you. So call us back when you have it. Goodbye. And just let go. Right now I'm just like, okay, so that was very unfruitful. So now we're into, about 15, 20 minutes, a broken teacup, a wet floor underneath me. I got like a bath towel on top of this wet floor so I could put my feet under my desk. And now I call back to the original people, right? And now I have to wait like 10 minutes on hold, right? Now, here's the thing. At this point, right, I'm already feeling the stress start to build, right? I'm feeling my chest is becoming tight. My breathing is a little bit, like it's getting a little short, and I'm definitely feeling the stress in my body, right? And I can notice it, and I'm like, okay, Art, you're getting stressed. You're feeling stress in your body, so be careful, right? Like that's what it told me. It's like, be careful, right? Because this is the time where you're going to become reactive, and you're going to make something, you're going to make a bad situation even worse, right? And so I'm sitting there trying, and doing my best to stay regulated, right? And after 10 minutes now of this music, if you want to even call it music, I get somebody else on the phone, right? And now this person, she was a lovely sounding woman. I mean, she definitely was like cheery and like, like, hey, thanks for calling. I'm here to help you, kind of thing, And as I started to like get, it was such a weird moment, right? Because, I was already like, again, I was feeling the tension, right? And the stress and quite frankly, anger, for me. And again, this is something I've talked about here a lot, right? In this podcast and YouTube channel that, that anger for me is a very familiar emotion, right? To get to, right? Like, so my stress, my anxiety, my agitation is going to tend towards anger, right? And that's just the way I am because of how many years I got to practice being angry, how many people around me were always angry and all of that, right? And so as I'm sitting there, I can feel anger kind of knocking on the door, if you will, right? I can like feel like, okay, this is a place where I get angry. And one of the things that was kind of, irritating me and kind of inviting this anger to come in was the fact that this person on the phone, I know she's just doing her job. I know she's just, she's doing what she's supposed to do and all that, right? But she was, it was like something a little bit too like phony, cheery about her voice. And it was like, and I felt as though I was, I don't know, I felt like there was a misalignment between where I was at emotionally and where she was at emotionally, right? And so, and I could feel at that moment, I could feel that my anger was starting to rise, and that this was, this was about to become a thing, right? Like, and let me tell you this, if 10 years ago, this same exact situation, I would have been, like, talking to this woman in a very inappropriate way and asking for a manager and doing that whole thing. I would have been the man Karen, right? And that is no question that that's where this was going, right? But here's the thing, right? Remember, I practice every day, right? So I could feel this coming on, right? And so what I did was I allowed for compassion to come through, right? I reminded myself that this is a moment for compassion for her and for me, right? That is the key here. That is what's going to help, right? And it's very counterintuitive, right? Because you don't think about that at that moment, right? This person is here for me, right? Like, I paid this company to do this thing, and this is a representative of this company, and this company is not doing the thing that I paid them for, and this representative of the company is here to make this right, right? And so I don't need to be compassionate for this person. That should not be on me to do that, right? And technically, I guess it's not. I mean, I guess technically it's not on me. It's not my responsibility to do that, right? Like, technically, I guess, but I don't even know what that means, right? The fact of the matter was that I felt that my place, my emotional regulation was not in a good place at that point, right? Like, I could feel that. And that's the other thing, a little digression here, pardon me, but once you get to a certain point, right? It's not like I didn't have the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to just, walk away from this for 20 minutes and then come back. I didn't have that opportunity, right? I had a full schedule of calls all day on Friday. So I had to deal with this, right? Either I was going to deal with it today or I wasn't going to deal with it. And then not dealing with it was going to cause all kinds of other issues, right? There's going to be issues about, other stressors that are going to come from that non-doing, not accomplishing this thing, right? And so I didn't have that opportunity, right? Now, and when we're in this place, like once it gets to, 16 minutes or something of this music already and 2 customer service people who are not really very in tune with me and this other thing that was like a Kafka, brief interlude of Kafka nightmare, right? Like I'm already dysregulated, right? So it's not a question of just taking a couple of breaths or, and again, I don't have the opportunity to walk away. So at this point, I have to deal with this from this place of stress. I had no choice, right? I had no choice but to deal with what was happening from this place of stress and from the honesty of this place of stress. So this is what I did. Okay. So I remembered, and this is just because of practice, right? Like 10 years ago, this never would have occurred to me, right? But because of my practice, and I hope that the practice that you're doing is going to do the same thing for you. Because of the practice, I was able to recognize that the thing that's really needed here is mindful self-compassion, right? So the first thing I did internally was I recognized, I said, you know what, you're in this place right now. You're having a really hard time. You're at the mercy of these people. And there's nothing you can do except to keep going with what you're doing, right? But it's hard, right? So recognizing that already, just recognizing that helped to sort of reframe it a little bit. Right. And all of a sudden, I felt a little bit of space. I felt a little bit of like, okay, I can breathe a little bit. Just saying that, just saying to myself that this is hard, like recognizing it, stopping for a moment, recognizing that it's hard. And then I recognized that this woman doesn't know me. And she doesn't know what I've been through. And she doesn't know what I've been through this morning, what I've been through for my life. She doesn't know anything, right? And so at that moment, right, I decided to embrace and allow compassion to be the thing that motivated me, right? And let me tell you about what happened here. Okay, let me tell you this. It's really just absolutely beautiful. Well, two really important things happened. Number one is that when I took a deep breath and I committed to staying in a space of compassion, right? What the next step was that I said to this woman, I said, I think her name was Ophelia. I said, Ophelia, I know that you're doing your job and I know that you're probably really good at your job, but I just need you to understand that this has been a really difficult situation for me already this morning. I'm going through a really hard time here. I explained everything that happened, right? Not that I'm going through a hard time here. I didn't say that. I just explained what happened. And I said that I really need to, get this settled today. And I feel like I'm hoping that you're going to be able to be, more sort of, I don't remember even the words I used, but the whole point was that I was very assertive with myself, right? But I was not unkind. See, I was assertive with a kindness and a compassion and an understanding that Ophelia, she might be having a hard day too, right? And she might not want to be sitting here with me on the phone, right? And so once I was able to do that, right, now I can speak from a place that is not anger. that is not frustration, that is not taking this frustration out on this poor woman, Ophelia, who's just sitting there making her hourly wage and doing the best that she can, right? And also who may, again, be suffering on some level that I don't know about, right? So once I went through that thought process, right, now we're speaking kindly to each other. And because she heard that from me, she was like, wow, she was like, okay, I hear you. I hear you. And I'm going to do what I can to fix this. All right, hold on a second. And she got on the phone with one of her colleagues, and they were, they got me these alternate numbers. And I said, okay, well, let me, and she said, if you want, call them while I'm on the phone and merge us in on the call, and I'll be here to help you. If they tell you that they can't help you, I'll be here. And I was like, awesome, Ophelia, this is great. Thank you. I tried the number. It didn't work. So Ophelia, it didn't work. I'm really sorry. She got on my screen sharing. Like the point is that Ophelia went above and beyond to help me, right? This would not have happened if I was nasty to Ophelia. If I was telling Ophelia like, gosh darn it, I paid you for this, you blah, 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 right? Ophelia would not have gone the extra mile for me. Right. And so the point, but the bigger point here, right, the much bigger point here, right, is that in this, from this, as soon as I was able to employ compassion in this situation, not only did everything change with Ophelia, and I wound up getting my answer and gotten everything transferred within 5 minutes. Like it worked. Everything was great. And it all worked out, which again, that wouldn't have happened if I kept on with the anger. In all likelihood, it would have been another 3 calls before I got it all figured out, right? And Ophelia wouldn't have been wrong to be like, sorry, I don't know what else I can do for you, sir, Mr. Karen, keep talking mean to me and see what happens, But that's the way that I used to operate. And that's the way a lot of people operate. And you know what? The feeling is like I have a right to this, right? Because I did pay you this money and I am entitled to this service. So screw you and your feelings. I don't want to, I don't have to be nice to you. It's your job to help me, right? Now, that reasoning is not unsound, but it's not compassionate. And you know what? In the end, it doesn't really work that way. It doesn't happen that way. And really, when you can employ compassion, that's when you get somebody to feel you. Right? Like I was willing to tell Ophelia that I felt her, right? I feel that she's on the phone here right now with somebody. It's not her fault personally that I'm in this space, but I am in a place of great agitation. I'm grumpy. I'm cranky. And darn it, I need some answers, So it's not her fault that I was in that place, right? So the minute she understood or the minute she felt that I cared enough about her, well, then she cared enough about me, right? But again, the much bigger picture here, the much bigger thing that happened here was that in the past, right, this exchange to start the day would have been written off, right? I would have said, okay, well, it's just one of these days. I'm having a crappy day. Look at how it started. And then you know what? When we think we're going to have a crappy day, guess what? 9 times out of 10, crappy is the day that we're going to have, right? Because we kind of make it happen, right? But because I was able to have some compassion, and because of that compassion, everything did work out. I mean, I got my thing fixed, but I also reminded myself of the compassion towards myself and towards others. And what that enabled was for the rest of the day to be just what the rest of the day was going to be, right? It didn't have to be colored by this. And I wound up having an amazing day on Friday. I had amazing meetings with people. I had amazing times with my kids in between the meetings, and everything was beautiful, right? And it's just all because I was able to practice mindful compassion, otherwise known as heartfulness. And that is what I teach. So if anything in this story resonates with you and you would like to learn more about how these practices work and how to get these practices started in your life, I'm going to put a link to book a call with me, a free call with me, in the description below. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I wish you well, and I'll be back again tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.